Hey, it's Matt, your average gamer, and for this one, we're going to be going over the Golden Order Fundamentalist build. What is the Golden Order Fundamentalist build? It's a build built around Golden Order Incantations, the Coded Sword, and basically everything holy. Let's get into the details here. If you're looking for a really good time, look no further because this is one of the most fun builds I've done lately as well. I had an absolute blast with this one. This was one of those things where it was just really enjoyable to have that faith and intelligence mix and to be able to use these different incantations that I don't frequently use. And then the Coded Sword's really cool too. Next we have Triple Rings of Light, which is an absolute large target shredder. If you're looking to absolutely destroy some of the larger targets in the game, especially some of the dragons and such, Triple Rings of Light won't let you down and absolutely chews through their HP. Triple Rings of Light is a staple for this build. On New Game Plus 7, and after this intro fight, I'm going to show you where to get everything, and everything's timestamped, by the way, and this is going to be basically how to get all the basics that are for this build and how to build a Golden Order Fundamentalist. Things first is, where do you get the Golden Order Seal? The Golden Order Seal is a weightless seal that you can get in the Altless Plateau at the Minor Erdtree Church, and it's going to boost your Golden Order Incantations by 10%. Note about this seal, by the way, it has the highest scaling in the game once you get to 80 faith and 80 intelligence. We're using a 150 character going more for 45 and 45, but it does have the highest scaling in the game as far as seals go. There it is on the map there in the Altless Plateau. It's not far from that site of grace that I showed on screen. And then next up, I'm going to show you where to get the Golden Order Principia book. From the Erdtree Sanctuary site of grace, it's actually technically going to be above you, but you're going to turn around and you're going to follow this tree branch here as if you were going up to the next site of grace, except we're not going to quite go that way. Instead, we're going to make a detour, and that detour is going to end up getting us the book, and it's also going to get you the Erdtree bow. If you don't have the Erdtree bow, that's up here as well. But basically, you're going to make a sharp left turn, and then you're going to go through the open window back into the room above where you started. And then you're going to see another tree branch. In this case, you're going to jump on the tree branch, follow it up, and you're going to see an item, a very obvious item that you're able to pick up from the tree branch, and that is the Golden Order Principia book that has the Golden Order Incantations in it, some of the stuff that we're going to need. Very, very solid pickup for this build, and there it is on the map there. Next up is the Gold Mask, which will boost us addition, I think, by another 10% for our Golden Order Incantations, and that's in the Altless Plateau as well. It's on the bridge that's fallen past the Windmill Village. If you go down to that section below there, you can end up going up on this bridge, and at the very end piece before the bottom that you can get back up on, it has the Gold Mask, which you can pick up. There it is on the map there at the end of that bridge, and that's going to boost Golden Order Incantations as well. Definitely not a must-have, but definitely a big bonus for this build. Now I want to show the exact armor set we were rocking for this entire build, which is pretty specific. We're using the Gold Mask, obviously, and then we're using the Beast Champion armor. We did hit 51 poise, by the way, and he was still at the War Master's shack, so we killed him there in Limgrave, and we're able to get the drop. I will show it on the map here. There it is in Limgrave at the War Master's shack. Not too bad. If you did progressive quest line, you can also get it from him invading in Farum Azula. And next up is the Royal Knight's leggings, which after you defeat Royal Knight Loretta, the real version of her, spoiler alert, you can buy it at the Round Table Hold. That was at the Round Table Hold, and the next one up here is going to be our last piece of armor. Now that we got the Beast Champion armor, Gold Mask, and Royal Knight Loretta's greaves, we're going to go for the Guardian Bracers. On Caleb, these are fairly easy to farm. My last build, by the way, was when I was doing an arcane build on this character, so I was using the Rivers of Blood to farm them, but you can farm them by the Dragon Barrow Fork Site of Grace and by the second Minor Erdtree in Caleb. There it is on the map there, and we've got our entire armor set. Next one is probably my favorite incantation in this entire build, and that is Triple Rings of Light, which you get out in the Erdtree. And these are really powerful given the fact that you get the damage back and forth, and you have to drop down from the Prayer Room Site of Grace. Be aware, there are enemies down here, and all the enemies, even though they're basic enemies, are going to hit harder because this is all the way out in the Erdtree. Obviously, they scale a little higher up, but yeah, make sure you kill them. You don't want to get stabbed in the back or anything, and then you can pick up the drop. Awesome incantation for larger targets, by the way. You're going to see that later in the video as well, as we highlighted that earlier too. It's really powerful against your larger targets, especially if they're not incredibly holy resistant. They're going to take a ton of damage with Triple Rings of Light. All right, after we clean up all the enemies here and get rid of them, there it is on the map there, right by the Prayer Room Site of Grace out in Erdtree. The next one up here is you get Cipher Pad, I believe that's what it's called, and that is in your regular Round Table Hold. You're going to jump down and you're just going to follow me here. I didn't end up using this much for this build. I ended up opting for the Coded Sword, and I'm going to show you where that is as well. No, Cypher Pad is probably the more obvious option for the whole Golden Order theme, but I ended up liking the Coated Sword's damage. Obviously, it has the good faith scaling as well, and it can also do posture damage. Overall, for me, I feel like it's the better option of the two, and there we are on the map there at the round table hold. And the next up is... This is the last one here. I had to do this on a different character because it was already Capital of Ash by then, and you can miss the Coated Sword, by the way, if it is Capital of Ash. However, if it is not, then you're going to go back to the Erdtree Sanctuary Site of Grace, and then you're going to follow me on screen here. Now, this is the way to get here without dropping down. In the below section, you can actually drop down to this as well, but I decided to opt just to follow the routes and show you that you can basically follow these routes all the way down if you didn't know this to get to the alternate round table hold in the capital. Those that haven't been there, there's an exact version, more or less, of the round table hold that you can find in the capital, and you can get there 2 ways from the West Capital Rampart Site of Grace. I believe you can jump down somewhere over there, but you have to be careful, or if you want, you can follow these routes down. Coated Sword's definitely worth a grab too, and there's a bunch of other stuff in the round table hold. This section, I'm not going to go over all of that, but be sure to pick up all the items along the way, and then right there in that hole in the wall that you see there, the doorway, that's where we're going to be headed. And once we're in there, I'm going to show you where to go to get the awesome Coated Sword, and again, that Coated Sword I mentioned earlier, it does good posture damage, it does good holy damage, and it gets an A in faith scaling. Just continue to follow me on screen. Basically, more or less, we're heading to that middle section, that main area of the round table hold, because in the throne room inside is where we're going to get the Coated Sword. It's slowly becoming one of my favorite weapons in the game. I enjoy the posture damage, the fact that it's fairly lightweight, and the good faith scaling. There it is on the map there in the capital, and you can't get here once it's the Capital of Ash to get the Coated Sword. That's a rune arc, by the way, and then we're going to head to the throne room. I'm just going to show this real quick. This is where the Site of Grace is. We're going to go here in a second just so you know where it is. It's to the left down here. And then after this, we're going to head back in and go to the throne room to pick up the Coated Sword. After you grab the Coated Sword, I'm going to show you real quick where the Site of Grace is if you're unfamiliar with this area. We're going to head back to where I showed you before so you can get there. And then I'm going to show it on the map to make it a little bit easier to navigate. Right there, as I showed you, to our left, we're going to make a sharp left here. Make sure you grab this entire set. If you're doing Thorn Sorceries, by the way, that will boost them. That's the Albrecht set. And then go to your left and then follow me around, and we'll get to the Site of Grace in the alternate round table hold. And there it is. We're close to building our entire Golden Order build. I hope this helped you guys. This was a little bit more of an in-depth guide into where everything is. And there the Site of Grace is in the alternate round table hold, fortified manor. And there it is on the map there in the capital. Keep in mind, you can't go there once it's Capital of Ash, so it has to be the regular royal capital. And the last item we're going to get here is the last 2 incantations we want to grab from Corrin, and you have to progress his quest line to where he gets the gold mask. I'll have Discus of Light, which is a very spammable incantation you can use that he now sells once he meets Gold Mask in the Altless Plateau, and that's at the bridge where Gold Mask is, not far from Windmill Village. And that was the last thing. There it is on the map there, and we've covered all of the basics. Everything's timestamped, like I said, if you need help getting everything. As far as the talismans, they're in the description below. Some of them involve entire quest lines, and that's what journey we're going into. We're going to start a new one and check out this build. My 3 of 4 characters that I use for YouTube that's currently going into a new journey, and I wanted to use this to do a couple things at the beginning. Later in the video, though, we're going to fight Radahn, take on a couple more challenging bosses, obviously, and stuff, and see how the build does. For the Grafted Scion, though, he went down in just a matter of seconds with triple Rings of Light, which ends up probably being my favorite incantation for this build, and we're going to mix that in with the Coated Sword against the Tree Sentinel. So taking on the Tree Sentinel here, we're going to use triple Rings of Light. But first things first, we're going to use Radagon's Rings of Light, which is chargeable, by the way. You can charge it up and it does a lot of damage. It is a little bit slow. If you do manage to pull it off, Radagon's Ring of Light has a pretty high damage cap, and you can use that for Deathbirds and such too. If you end up pulling it off, the holy damage, the amount you can get from it, and the fact that it's chargeable, it does a lot. Now back to triple Rings of Light and the Coated Sword. Now with the Coated Sword, it has a lot of advantages. That posture damage, the fact that it's anti-block, the A in faith scaling, and the fact that it does a reasonable amount of damage as well, and it's lightweight. It really is something that you should definitely have in your toolkit, especially if you're a faith build. Definitely slowly turning into one of my more liked weapons. It really is something that you can have that's lightweight, and I love faith builds to have in your toolkit to kind of always have on hand that does good damage and has that anti-block that you're going to see on screen again here. The Knight is not so tough when you can pretty much go through his entire shield and hit him no matter what. It doesn't matter whether he's blocking. The Coated Sword, like Cypher Pata, will go right through them and do a good amount of damage too. Before we fight Radahn, who's going to be a bit of a challenge, we're going to show off Godric, which can be a little bit of a fight too, because like most bosses, he has 40% holy resistance. Let's see how our build holds up. First things first, we're going to want to cast triple rings of light, get that going as much as we can, because it does a lot of damage. It comes back to us, and it's very versatile. After that, we can use the coated sword on Godric to get some damage and to hope for a posture break. As you can see, as far as triple rings of light goes, it actually does a good amount of damage to him, despite the fact that he has reasonable holy resistance like most bosses in the game, and it can be spammed. He's very quick to cast, as you can see on screen there. It goes extremely fast, and we're able to spam that and then combine that with the coated sword to get a good amount of damage. Even though he's going into phase 2, we're going to continue to try to hit him as much as we can, cast triple rings of light, make sure we got enough stamina here to go at him with the coated sword, and we're going to try to go for that posture break. Now, when you're using holy, just keep in mind that the majority of main bosses are going to be fairly resistant to it. I think as far as DLC goes, we're going to get a lot of bosses that are a little bit more holy friendly to kind of bring that relevancy back. There's the posture break there we're able to get with the coated sword. As I mentioned, the posture damage isn't bad on it, and it does a decent amount of damage on him. Even at the end of this fight, we're going to end up taking more damage than I really wanted to, because I wasn't sure if I wanted to mix in any other incantations, but I ended up finding that, as you probably saw throughout this video, the combination of the coated sword and the triple rings of light was my best bet. Godric's not particularly tough. Even on New Game Plus 7, he's got a ton of HP, and again, 40% holy resistance, not bad at all on his part, but for us, we still are able to get a good amount of damage out of this, and it's still a build that's workable for the majority of bosses in Elden Ring. More important to the point, I found myself really enjoying this build and setup. I thought the whole Golden Order theme was a lot of fun. I ended up liking the incantations a lot, and then again, the coated sword started to become one of my favorite weapons in Elden Ring. The more I used it, I liked the anti-block, the fate scaling, damage, and the posture damage of it. Down goes Godric. We're going to show off a few more different things, including this dragon and Radahn, and then we're going to show mobs, buffs, builds, stats, everything you need to know. By the way, this is an absolute mob destroyer, so definitely be sure to hang around for that. There's a really cool clip for it. When it comes to triple rings of light here, it really does excel against larger targets. You can see on screen here, we're able to spam it a lot, get a ton of damage initially. Obviously, it's not a ton holy resistance, but it's the fact that he's so large. He's getting hit with all 3 rings, and then they're coming back, and he's getting hit with them again. Huge bonus for us. So if you're having a hard time with any of the bigger targets in the game and you happen to be a faith and intelligence build, I would look no further than triple rings of light, because it's going to do you a lot of justice when it comes to the bigger targets in Elden Ring. Very quick to cast too. You can also dodge out of it relatively fast, which is another benefit to triple rings of light, and it was the main reason why it was my favorite thing in this entire build. It wasn't just because of the damage, but it's how quickly you can cast it, you can double cast it, and you can roll out of it fast as well. Down goes the magic dragon. We're going to show off some more stuff here. I really do enjoy this build. This is something you definitely are going to want to try out. We're going to show off the magma worm, Radahn, and then we're going to finish up the video with everything you need to know. Magma worm is another large target, so we're going to combine a couple things here and see how much damage we can do, and then we're going to show off Radahn, who does have a decent amount of holy resistance and might be a little bit of a challenge for us on New Game Plus 7. So as far as the magma worm goes, it's not going to be overly challenging for us in terms of being able to get damage out, because he is so large, and once again, with triple rings of light, he's getting hit with everything consistently, and he's taking non-stop damage, and it's very quick to cast. By the way, we're going to go over Discus of Light in a little bit too as far as mobs and stuff goes. I use that for smaller targets. Some of the Golden Order Incantations, now you can use the one that buffs any given weapon if you want to rock a different weapon, but since we're using the coated sword, we can't really use that. Everything else though, this is definitely, at least for me, the best one out of the Golden Order Incantations. Talking about PvE here, not PvP. Obviously for PvP, there'll be some differences there, but for me, as far as PvE goes, triple rings of light and the coated sword seems to be the best combination, what I ended up rocking for this build. Let's take on the ultimate boss fight for this video, and that'll be Radahn on New Game Plus 7, and see what we can do with triple rings of light in combination with the coated sword against a decent boss on the max difficulty of the game. When you walk in to fight Radahn, my recommendation is to buff everything beforehand, and then for the shorter duration buffs, you actually have a window at the second stop point, because he's going to shoot the arrows up that rain down, and when he does that, you can actually do any additional buffs you need to do and then get back on your horse. That's why you saw me do Howl Shabriri there. That way I at least get something out of it when I go and attack Radahn, basically trying to draw out a combo. I'll talk about that in a second, but there's a specific combo that I like that he does that gives him a good window, or gives us a good window to hit him. As As far as Radahn, that long combo you're going to see, it's the one I almost draw out for almost all builds because it's highly punishable. As long as you're able to dodge it, even if you get hit once, you could still make use of the end of it. It is a very long combo that has a long animation at the end that you can dish out some damage to Radahn. If you're struggling to solo Radahn, that's always my recommended starting point. By the way, this took, I think, 2 or 3 tries, not too many. I got a little greedy on the first 2, but as far as Radahn goes here, we're using triple Rings of Light, and then we're going to switch it up with the Coated Sword as well. Unlike most bosses, has a decent amount of holy resistance. The entire theme of the game basically puts them all around 40%, so he's not going to take a ton of damage from it, but because we're doing a fairly reasonable amount of damage in general, we could still get decent damage on some of the tougher bosses in the game. What about the really holy resistant ones like Malekith, Radahn, Elden Beast? I'd recommend with this build you could use the Blasphemous Blade, Sword of Night and Flame. You have a lot of variety, so you can just switch it up just for a couple of bosses just so you don't have too much of a hard time and you can still rock a fun Golden Order build. Yeah, you'll have a whole bunch of different things at your disposal. Sword of Night and Flame is definitely really fitting for this, but it just doesn't fit the theme. It fits the stats we have, though, since we are a Faith and Intelligence build. Second phase Radahn, here we go. We're going to get hit a couple times here, but we're going to make the most out of this. Try to get what damage we can out of triple Rings of Light again, the Coated Sword, and see how quickly we can take him down. And they're not doing too bad damage. We did rebuff, though, there in between with Howl Shabriri, because you have that opportunity. The Meteor does take a while after all. And then we're going to move in with the Coated Sword, because that's going to give us more damage overall, and it'll allow us to dodge some of his attacks up close. Remember Launch Radahn? He used to be so much more tough than he is now. He's still a difficult boss, especially on New Game Plus 7, because he does a lot of damage. And granted, his hitboxes were like totally messed up when the game came out, but yeah, he's significantly easier than he used to be. For anybody that remembers that, Launch Radahn, totally different boss fight. As you can see there, you do a little bit better off with the Coated Sword and then triple Rings of Light to start out. It'll give you a better chance to dodge up close, and staying under him is sometimes your best bet. Now onto mobs. This is a really cool clip. Show off Discus of Light here, but then we're going to show the real highlight here. I know I buffed for it just to show this off a little bit, but we're going to show off what triple Rings of Light can do to mobs. You can absolutely destroy them, and it's a really fun and stylistic way to take on mobs. You can see Discus of Light is really fun to use. It's highly spammable. It's a simple spell. It doesn't cost much FP, barely any at all, and that can take out mobs or smaller enemies with ease. Time to use triple Rings of Light. Let's get everything going here in a second after we're done with the Discus here, which is, again, fun to use, but it's not going to be mainly what we're going to use here when they group up. If you're ever grouped up against mobs, it's time for triple Rings of Light. Literally throw this around like a boomerang against them, essentially, and then just kind of hang back, and usually by the time they come back to you, whether it doesn't kill them initially, on the way back, it's going to take them down. It's a really cool way to take on regular enemies in Elden Ring. I felt like that was a really stylistic clip, and it kind of showed off and highlighted what you can do with triple Rings of Light. It really is one of my favorite incantations now, and incredibly useful for taking on mass amounts of enemies. Let's get into the spells here and buffs. First things first, we're going to drink our tear. We're going to cast Golden Vow. After we cast Golden Vow and drink our tear, they're the longer duration things. Then you can use Blessings of the Erdtree to add some extra HP, and it fits the theme. Then we're going to use Howl Shabriri. Quickly here, we're going to go over everything we're using. In our main hand, obviously, we're using the Coated Sword with Unblockable Blade. That's really fun to use. And then we have Radagon's Ring of Light, which is chargeable, does a lot of holy damage. Then we have my favorite one, which is triple Rings of Light, which you can double cast and use as a boomerang to come back to you and do more damage. And then we have Discus of Light, which is really cheap and FP friendly to use and does a reasonable amount of damage. Let's get into equipment. For equipment, we have the Coated Sword plus 10 with Golden Order Seal plus 10 as well. We had the Brass Shield. I'm not really a shield person, but it fits the theme. Gravelstone Seal if you want to do some lightning incantations. Gold Mask, Beast Champion Armor, Guardian Bracers, Royal Knight Greaves. We have the Sacred Scorpion Charm, Phlox Canvas Talisman, Shard of Alexander, Dragoncrest Great Shield Talisman, or you can use the Godfrey Icon in that spot if you're using anything that's chargeable. Then we're going to be using the Holy tier and the Defense tier as well. You can use the Faith tier in that spot if you want to too. Let's get into stats for this build. For stats, this character had started on the Bandit class, so I had arcane points that I didn't really need, but the concept here is to try to get to 45 Faith and then 45 Intelligence. Anything over that, you should invest more in Faith. For me with the setup, I had 40 and 45, and the Golden Order seal was giving me around 327 incantation scaling with the 10% boost. I was getting pretty good damage out of it. This is a solid setup for a Golden Order build. And the Golden Order Fundamentalist build as well. If you want to be a Golden Order god, definitely try out this build. Thank you, Red, by the way, for the channel build suggestion. This was Red's idea. This was a really fun one and enjoyable one to do. Honestly, I had a blast with it, and something that I would do again for sure. The Golden Order stuff is pretty cool. If you're not on the Discord, definitely be sure to join that. It's an awesome growing community with over 500 people there now, and you can put in your channel build suggestions there as well, and hopefully I can get to it. I've been getting to a lot of them lately, and if you're not subbed and you love overpowered PvE builds, be sure to check out all the awesome builds that are on my channel. Thanks for watching. As always, I will catch you guys there.